Good evening. Welcome to This Week in Review. Tonight's stories include: I had an interview with Wayne Quilty of Burgeo. An RCMP officer from Corner Brook along with his police dog were in town on Wednesday for a demonstration for the ground search and rescue. We have an update from the Burgeo Diversification Development Committee, an Anglican church report, and more, so please stay with us. Corporal Derek Shep and his police dog Con from the Corner Brook subdivision were in town on Wednesday to put off the course for the ground search and rescue here in Burgeo. Only 3 members of the ground search and rescue showed up for the demonstration on Wednesday afternoon. However, Corporal Shep and Con continued to do the demonstration anyway.
Search part. What he's supposed to do is he's supposed to indicate it, and he indicated it, but he just didn't feel like it at that time. Search part. He's getting it somewhere. Down. Down. Try again.
Okay.
Get him out of there! Come on, get him out of there! Get him out of there! Out! Down. If I were to start running, he'll start running. If a kid starts running, he's going to think there's something going on. He's going to think there's some sort of excitement, and he's going to start running. He takes off. Back, down. I had the dog in the truck the other day, and a little kid walking by the truck and he was sort of scared, and all of a sudden the kid gets halfway past the truck and he takes off running. Well, the dog thinks, hey, this guy's trying to get away. I can try to get this guy back. And it's just a game for him. The dog doesn't realize it. So the dog was inside, couldn't get out. He starts barking all the louder, and the kid starts running all the faster. And all the kid is doing is egging that dog on by running. So if you're out searching and the dog starts barking and then running up towards you, if you were to start running, he's going to say, hey, this guy's trying to get away from me, and he's going to latch onto you. So if you're searching and he comes running up behind you, just stop. He'll say hi, and he'll carry on again. He's not gonna bite anybody. Unless they run. And then it's somebody's trying to get away, and he's just trying to bring him back.
He was sinking his teeth right in and you guys hold to a person, was it?
What did you use the door?
Yeah.
No. Kids like that.
How does he respond to a shot? Like say you...
Oh, he'll get excited. We were in the gymnasium. Out. Get out of there. Come here. Down. Gymnasium with 400 kids in it yesterday. At the end, all the kids started clapping. Well, he just started barking, and he thought he could hear the excitement of the noise and the commotion of the kids. Well, he starts getting noisy then, and it's the same with a shot. He hears it and he starts barking. I take him to the range sometimes. If it's just myself, yeah, you can sometimes keep him quiet, but no, he gets pretty excited with all the noise.
The demonstration will be shown in its entirety at a later date. I had an interview regarding the Fisheries Alternative Program with Wayne Quilty from ACOA. Mr. Quilty, what is the purpose of the Atlantic Canada's Opportunities Agency, or ACOA as it is more commonly called?
I guess the main purpose of ACOA is to strengthen the economy in Atlantic Canada mainly by establishing or assisting entrepreneurs in establishing, modernizing, upgrading, and expanding businesses, small, medium-sized businesses usually.
What is your position with ACOA?
My position is Development Officer for the Southwest Coast, which would take in from the community of Galance to the community of Port aux Basques, everything in between, which would obviously include Burgeo, Ramia, François Grey River.
ACOA has introduced a financial assistance program for coastal communities in Atlantic Canada called the Fisheries Alternative Program. Can you briefly explain the purpose of this program?
Fisheries Alternatives Program is one part of the Atlantic Fisheries Adjustment Program. The main purpose of this program is to diversify the economy in fishery-dependent communities. And we do that by a number of different options in the program. But the main purpose of the whole program, the Fisheries Alternatives Program, is to expand, modernize, upgrade, and establish small and medium-sized businesses in fishery-dependent communities, such that a person will have another option of employment rather than fishery. I mean, fishery and or something else.
Okay, how does the Fisheries Alternative Program work?
Well, essentially, anyone who is interested in establishing a new business venture or expanding, modernizing, so on and so forth, an existing venture would call me in my office in Port aux Basques, and I will come down to the area and either meet with that person or that group of people at their homes or some other site, say, such as the community council office or somewhere like that. And I guess my role as a development officer is to tell that person or group of people whether their idea is likely to fly or not, given ACOA's programs and mandates and so on and so forth. And also to give you a little bit of guidance where else you have to go, or where else you could go, or financing the term loan that you might need to go complementary to our funding.
What types of assistance is available under the Fisheries Alternative Program?
Well, under the Fisheries Alternatives Program, the main feature we've spoken of so far is to establish a new facility. If you wanted to establish a new facility, as long as it fell into our guidelines, which there are many of, and I would talk to the client individually about that, you could receive up to 65% grant for your capital costs, which could be buildings, machinery, that type of thing. If you were looking at doing a marketing project, to hire on a marketing person, you could get a wage subsidy of the declining balance of 75%, 50%, and 25% over 3 years to hire a person on to do some marketing for your company, say a tourism type of proposal, something like that. And you could, over and above that, you could get up to 65% of the cost involved in marketing, the general marketing things. If a person were to get involved in an innovative project, like inventing something, they could get up to 65% of their costs paid for from ACOA again. One of the main things that people run into problems with in starting a new business or to get a business venture off the ground is they have to do a business plan. Through the Fisheries Alternatives Program, you can get some money from ACOA to help you get a business plan done up. We do this through standing offers with other government departments, banks, chartered accounting firms, and so on and so forth. And right now we're doing those at a 50% rate. We cost shared. You pay 50, we pay 50. Other than that, there's also a project development catalyst fund that's meant as more or less a catch-all. If you have a small project and you have mostly everything done, but you need to do a prototype, for example, of a certain product, then you can come to us on a one-time deal and get up to $10,000 to do that. There's also some money available for business support, which is usually nonprofit organizations. And usually what they'll do under this option is, say, if you have a group of entrepreneurs in a community they all have a similar problem, like maybe a management course they need or some type of training, they can come to ACOA and look for some funding to get a course put off for, say, 10 operators in Burgeo, for example. And we would help the nonprofit organization with that. The other two options of the Fisheries Alternatives Program that usually help larger projects are the interest buy-down and loan insurance. And they typically are used for larger projects that will have to get a sizable term loan from a bank to offset the grant they might get from us. And we could help insure a loan and also buy some interest points off whatever the going interest rate is on the loan. And that's basically the options of the Fisheries Alternatives Program.
Have there been many small business applications from this area for the Fisheries Alternative Program?
There's been a number of applications from the whole southwest coast, well, from all Newfoundland, Labrador, and the Atlantic provinces, because it is an Atlantic Canada program. But down in the Burgeo, Ramia, Francois, Grey River areas, there has been a sizable amount of interest down here. The things, of course, that we have to do are make sure that the ideas that people want to get involved in are things that we can do in our programs. If they're not, that's not to say that a person can't do it on their own, but we have to ferret out which ideas are which. Every time I come down, there seems to be more and more interest in the program, and generally, what's there for me, you know, what will happen if the fishery goes totally? Can I get some money from ACOA, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of people. I think that the first year of the program, it was just kind of, there is a new program there. Now they know they've seen maybe somebody down the street who has got money to start a small business, and now they're starting to put on their thinking caps and come up with a few ideas. Some of the ideas are obviously going to be copycat. Somebody will want to start another convenience store. Somebody will want to start a restaurant, and so on and so forth. And ACOA's policy on competition is that we won't do those. We won't set you up to put me out of business, sort of thing. But innovative ideas, they don't have to be big. They can be home-based businesses and so on and so forth. But there is a lot of interest down here so far. Last count, I checked our statistics this morning. There was, I think, 11 projects approved for down in this area, which came to a total of, let me see, I have a note here on the top end this one. We have 11 projects down in the Penguin Development Association area so far, which came to a total of $612,542 in assistance from ACOA, which brought in a total project cost of $1,531,818. And that's a sizable amount of money for such a small area. And I expect that amount will go up over the next 3 years of the program, because it's just starting, they're just starting to get their teeth into this now, and it can only get bigger from here.
This is your second visit to our community. Will you be visiting our area on a fairly regular basis?
Well, this is actually probably my 4th visit down, but you have to count Ramia there too, because I was at Ramia for one visit. I'm going to try to make a habit of getting down once every 2 weeks, if not every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. And what I'll be doing is contacting you guys and asking you to put it on the community channel for me, that I'll be here for whatever hours during the day. And I can see people at the community council office, or if someone doesn't like that arrangement, I can go to their home and meet them, or go to their shop, or whatever the case may be.
Okay, I'd like to thank you for taking time to come in and speak with us.
Thank you for having me.
3 representatives of Burgeo Diversification Development Committee were in our studio this past week to give us an update on their progress since their last visit.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Owen Marsden. I'm president of the Burgeo Diversification Development Committee. And what I'd like to do this evening is to introduce to you the Community Profile Committee. Before I do that, I'd just like to bring you up to date a little bit to what we've been doing through the summer months, and we'll give you a small introduction to some of the committees that are on the go. Our mandate remains to try and open up some opportunities for the community, and we've done this by talking to quite a number of people through the summer. For instance, Jim Dunn, and we've talked to Enterprise Newfoundland, Labrador. We've had several films shown to the Burgeo broadcasting thing here. And we've done several interviews, as I said. For instance, Dave Tizard one was on. We also had Bill Party down there for an interview. And I just want to remind you of some of them. One of them being at the provincial level, there's Enterprise Newfoundland and Labrador. This branch is out of Corner Brook, and Dave Tizard is the coordinator. Martin Lowe, Lana Bannister, and Sherry Ansel. All these people we've had here, we've had them in the parish hall, tried to get some information, and we also did an interview with Dave Tizard here with Burgeo Broadcasting. And these people can help with some financing. They also have on their computers a lot of marketing techniques, etc. Jim Dunn was also in there. Jim Dunn is with Community Futures. The main focus for him is if you have a business idea in mind and you can't get a loan from the banks, then these people will take a hard look at it and try their best to get that loan. Their rates are a little bit higher than the banks, I think 2% higher than the banks. And also involved with his particular program is a self-initiative program, which means you can draw your UIC for a period of 1 year while you're trying out your new idea. Also involved at the federal level is ACOA, Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. These guys they're more into the bigger business ideas. Those guys have big bucks to spend if you've got a big idea. But along with them is probably one of the better programs, and it's called the Fisheries Alternative Program, where you could receive up to 65% of your capital cost. All of this information, by the way, can be better explained if you go to Adventure, to the Penguin Area Development. And for sure, if you've got an idea, then you should certainly drop into Ed's office and he'd be too glad to talk to you. Some of the other areas that we as a committee would like to have out are we're looking at the possibility of obtaining the Burgeo Cottage Hospital once it's vacated. One of the things that the community profile people, one of the questions is to see how much demand there'd be for floor space in that area, and if by chance we could obtain that, whether it would be a viable thing to do. It wouldn't be much good to obtain the building and not have potential entrepreneurs there. Besides the cottage hospital, we are also looking at tourism. We also have a tourism committee with Jerome MacDonald and Carl Barnes. One of the most important things I think that they're looking at is changing the Burgeo Road to the Caribou Trail. This is very much in the initial stage, and so far we haven't got called the Caribou Trail, but we hope if we can, then that'll also open up some opportunities. For instance, t-shirts, mugs. Somebody might want to get into these sorts of things with a little symbol of the caribou or whichever symbol we use to represent the Caribou Trail. Again, it's used to encourage tourism. Just an example, Dave Tizard, I was talking to him a couple of days ago, and in Prince Edward Island right now, what they're advertising is cows. They have cows on mugs, etc., etc. So we hope that the Caribou Trail, calling it the Caribou Trail, we can advertise in pamphlets and that sort of thing, and create some tourism interest in this area. And that can open up a whole bunch of things, boat tours, etc., etc. Now the Community Profile Committee, I'm going to do it here now in just a couple of seconds. and do explain exactly what their intentions are. Some of the ideas are to draw out some potential entrepreneurs. We'd have a community profile for somebody on the outside who's looking at some expertise in certain fields. Could be pipe fitters, carpenters, etc. And that would also be good, of course, for any local people that be looking for specific skills. Some of the other ideas is get people simply talking about themselves and trying to help themselves. Through a simple discussion, you might get an idea, and they might get the confidence to go and try an idea. So anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the community profile.
Okay, well, as Owen just mentioned, the part of the mandate, I guess, of the Burgeo Diversification, Development Diversification Committee has been to do this questionnaire, to do up a community profile. And Sheila, myself, and George Childs were committee members selected to get that project underway. And we have a questionnaire done up. It's this little questionnaire. It's a 3-page thing, I think. And it's broken up into 3 sections. There's a personal information section. There's section 2 is your education, training, and skills. And section 3 is your attitudes toward your town, your impression of the town, what you expect for the future of this town, and so on. And people, primarily from the beginning, people from our committee will be going door to door and administering this petition. But I want to make it clear from the outset that it is not a fundraiser. We're not looking for monies. We're not going to be looking for monies now, in the future, anything. It's absolutely nothing to do with raising money. It's trying to do up a profile of the talent we have in this town, the skills we have in this town, the training we have, and then, of course, from that to find out what it is we're going to need. So the first section, the personal information, is just going to ask you for your name, your age, your marital status, and your current employment status. So if you're employed, unemployed, part-time, or whatever. Section 2 will talk about your education, your training, and your skills. The education is straightforward. Is what schooling do you have? Your training talks about job-related training. You know, sort of. You may have had first aid courses done. You may have done courses in fish cutting, CPR, those kind of things. Like not post-secondary training as such, you know, like that you went to trade school and did a secretarial course, but that you have some other job-related training. And the third section, the skills and the talents, that refers to, we call them God-given talents. Perhaps you can sing, dance, and play musical instruments, stuff like that. Maybe you're really good at crafts, sewing, knitting, woodworking, those kinds of things. Or maybe it's some talent that you've acquired, you know, something that you started out that you weren't real good at, but you've become very good at, like cake decorating, stuff like that. So we're just trying to find out a little bit about what you have to offer should a business come into town and stuff like that. And then section 3, which is possibly the most important section, well, perhaps it's not, they're all equally important, but certainly it's very important, and it's how do you see your town? What do you see for the future of this town? And we asked you things like, would you be willing to set up a small business in this town? And if you are not willing to, then why not? And if you are, what kind of assistance would you need? Would you need financial help? Have you talked to Penguin Area Development Association? Have you contacted our committee, for example? Is there anything we can do to help you? And I guess, and Owen has just mentioned, you know, like we're not setting up small businesses per se, and that's not really our mandate, but we're trying to help this community change, to expand, to diversify a little bit. And we have got a considerable amount of information from other groups, you know, from Enterprise Newfoundland, Labrador, from COA, and so on. So, like, we might not be able to help you, but along with like our group and the Penguin Area Development Association, I think if you were interested in setting up a small business, we could see that you would get the necessary help, or we could certainly try to see that you get the necessary help. And we also, and the questionnaire is going to look at, do you need training? Like, have you got a business idea, but do you need training before you can put that idea into practice? And after we've administered that questionnaire, and it will go all over town, then we're hopefully going to get it all back and compile it and find out what we have. Maybe if we've got half dozen people who are interested in the same thing, well, that might be a small business that you could get together and work on as a group and so on. But we'll see what comes out of it after the questionnaire is done. And I believe Sheila's going to deal with the part about getting the questionnaire done. I think how we're going to administer it, or how we're going to try to administer it.
There are 10 of us on the committee, and the way we plan to do it is 10 of us are going to take 10 questionnaires, and we're going to family and friends naturally, because those are the people that we can rely on to help us. And we're going to ask some of them to help us to go around. We're open to get each one of us to get 5 or 6 people to go out and visit another 5 or 6 families. So that way, within a month, we should have all of Burgeo covered. If you don't get a questionnaire within a month, would you please contact somebody from the Burgeo Development Committee? That's about it. That's what it's really.
Yeah, the other thing, I think the questionnaire will be administered to, like Sheila mentioned, we'll be doing families, but everybody in the family who is not full-time in school, but if they're 18 or over, they will be expected to fill out a questionnaire. So like from some families there may be just 1 or 2, and some there may be half a dozen depending on the age and training and so on. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Fisheries Minister Walter Carter has formally requested the federal government to save the Gulf cod fishery by placing a moratorium on the fishery until the cod stock has recovered to a level where the fishery can be sustained at a much higher level than the present 35,000 ton level. The options are clear, Mr. Carter said in a letter sent to Federal Fisheries Minister John Crosby. You can shut the fishery down now and allow the 1986-87 year classes to rebuild the stock, or continue fishing for 2 more years and let the fishery shut itself down when there are no fish left. Clearly, the latter is not acceptable. The Gulf cod stock is the principal basis for the fishery on the west and southwest coasts, as well as in Labrador Straits area. Some 5,000 to 6,000 fishermen take part in this fishery, using about 2,100 fixed gear vessels and 100 mobile gear vessels. Mr. Carter said that the Gulf cod stock has been steadily declining over several years, but pleas to the federal government to take stronger corrective measures have gone largely unheeded. He said that the province has been highlighting the problem for years and meets with federal ministers and officials during meetings at the Atlantic Groundfish Advisory Committee. He noted as well that in October of 1989, the province formally requested that the mandate on the signed task force be broadened to cover the groundfish situation in the Newfoundland section of the Gulf region. In his letter to Mr. Crosby requesting a moratorium for the Gulf cod fishery, Mr. Carter commented on the federal position that scientists are not advising a moratorium on the Gulf. He pointed out to the federal minister that the scientists did not advise a moratorium for northern cod, but the necessary action to close the northern cod fishery was taken. Mr. Carter said that only a moratorium on the Gulf cod fishery will save that fishery, and that it should be imposed as soon as possible, along with an adequate federal compensation package for fishermen and plant workers. I had an interview with Mayor MacDonald this past week that dealt mainly with the fishery. Mayor MacDonald, I understand that Council recently received a letter from one of the owners of the Burgeo fish plant, Mr. Bill Barrett.
That's right, Dave. Council did receive a letter from Mr. Barry 2 weeks ago, I think it was now. And I guess it's a follow-up from a meeting that we had with Mr. Barry on September the 2nd in Corner Brook. Apparently the town manager did write Mr. Barry a letter and received a response back. Basically, this letter states some concerns that Mr. Barry has in the Burgeo plant. And I guess number one, he's pointing out that he's lost several million pounds of fish quota in total. I guess that's the overall. and this, he's saying, has certainly affected the Burgeo operation. Now, I can't argue with that. He have lost fish quotas. For example, since 1990, he lost 50,000 metric tons of capelin, and the silver rate catches that's been down, and followed by that, now we've seen the 4VN area closed for the remainder of this year, and the scientist is saying there's going to be drastic cuts for next year, so he's basing his figures on that as well. So there's going to be drastic cuts, and he's mentioned that in the letter. Now that's not a hard one, I understand that. But he also mentioned in his letter, and by the way, this letter has gone out to the general public. It went in the mail today, so the general public can read this letter and judge for themselves on what Mr. Barry is saying. He also mentions the fact, in regards to the Burgeo plant, is workers' compensation in Newfoundland is a lot higher than in Nova Scotia. I understand what he's saying, but I mean that's an issue he's got to deal with through the provincial government. The people of Burgeo cannot solve that issue. And he mentions in order for the Burgeo plant to compete, I guess, in the marketplace, the plant has got to be mechanized in order to put out a cheaper product. And mechanization, I think, is one that is common. There's certainly no question about it. Nobody don't want to see it, but it's something that I think eventually we're going to have to accept. Most of the plants around is mechanized, and I think that's one that we can't argue against. When you're talking cutting costs and this type of thing, mechanization is the way to go, but at the same time we're concerned about the jobs. Now on September the 2nd, when we met with Mr. Barry in Corner Brook, he pointed out at that time if the plant was mechanized, it would reduce the workforce in the plant by 2/3. Apparently on the letter that he sent out, he's changed his mind on that. He's saying it would reduce the workforce by 1/3. So that's a lot of difference, you know. What do you do with the people that's not going to get back in the fishery is a good question. And I believe that this is where early retirement has got to come in. And I guess I want to change my story here, but in order for us to get under that early retirement program, we've got to qualify for the Northern Cod moratorium, or a moratorium in another area if there's one brought down. So if Burgeo, for example, qualifies for the moratorium, then we also qualify for the early retirement. Now, the early retirement package for the age of 50 and 55 and up is a reasonable salary. For the age of a person 50 to 55, there's not. I don't know if the provincial government will change their mind and throw in some contribution to the age of 50 to 55. If you do, and you get your retirement down to 50, well then certainly I think we probably could swing it in Burgeo. But at the same time, with all that being said, everybody realizes, I think, the federal government, the provincial government, and I know for sure the provincial government as well, because the Mayor's Alliance has met with the Premier of Newfoundland, and he's pointed out where there's too many people in the fishery, too many plants, and somewhere along the line somebody's going to have to make the decision on which plants goes and which plants remains. So this is an example, I think, of what we're going to see in the fishery of the future. We're going to see less people, less fishing, and less plants. So given the situation in Burgeo, if we can qualify for the cod moratorium and get the herd retirement, we might be able to do something with it.
Okay, Mr. Walter Carter, Minister of Fisheries, recently announced that he wanted the Gulf fishery closed and a moratorium put in place as well. If this happens, would Burgeo fall under that moratorium?
Well, certainly, Dave, we got to fall under one of them, and I guess our winter fishery comes from the 4VN area, the one that's closed now. But if there's a moratorium in the Gulf, then certainly we got to fall under one of them, because what quotas you're going to have left is not going to be enough quotas for any fish company in this province to send boats out to sea for. It's not going to be enough, for even people to get 10 weeks work. So definitely we would have to qualify for the moratorium. But in terms of the moratorium on the 2J 3KL, I just got off the phone from talking to DFO, and my understanding is by Tuesday of this week, a decision will be made if Burgeo will qualify for the 2J 3KL moratorium. And as soon as a decision is made on that, he's going to notify the town office. So I'm optimistic that we will qualify, but then again, you can't say, because we don't have too many figures to play with there. We're going to be running the line pretty fine, so it's difficult to say at this particular time. But whatever the result is, we should know by Tuesday on that. I hope we do qualify. As I said earlier, then we qualify for the early retirement, and we might be able to solve some of our problems there. But getting back to the letter again from Mr. Baird, he's mentioned several other things there, and I'm sure that people in the community that received the letter can judge for themselves, I guess. But as I see the picture right now, we're not going to see nothing moving in that plant for a long time, most definitely. And I'm also concerned with the offshore trawlers. The offshore trawler fleet in general in the Atlantic provinces. There's a big lobby I've mentioned before, I believe here on BBS, to get rid of the offshore trawlers, the modern technology as they see it. But on the other hand, if we're talking modern technology, if we're talking about mechanizing fish plants to do away with jobs, we're talking about modern technology on the trawler. You cannot be biased one against the other. If you're in favor of modern technology in the plant, you've got to be in favor of modern technology to harvest the product. So this is something that the Mayor's Alliance is pushing for. We want to see a deep sea fishery of the future. We also want to see an inshore. We want to see a balanced fishery. But you know and I know there's a large lobby group out there that want to see the offshore completely done away with. We hear every day on the news. And this is something the Mayor's Alliance is trying to keep alive, and we met with the Premier and Mr. Crosby on it, and we've certainly gotten support from him, and hopefully that we will, because when we met with the Premier, we told the Premier we were going to present him with a position paper. And as a matter of fact, I have a copy over there, the position paper, and all the deep sea communities that's involved. The history of each community goes back when they started in the fishing industry. And this is going to be presented to both the Premier and the Minister of Fisheries on our goals and objectives as we see a fishery of the future. And the Premier has certainly welcomed our input into this matter, because somewhere along the line he's going to have to make a decision on what plants come out of the system. So the province is going to have to withdraw some of those processing licenses, and they're going to need input from groups like it's the Fishermen's Union and the Mayor's Alliance or what have you. So I'm there to make sure that Burgeo stays in the fishery for the future.
Okay, Mr. Crosby was scheduled to come to Burgeo sometime between October 15th and 31st. Is Mr. Crosby still planning on coming to Burgeo?
Now, Dave, first of all, in terms of October 15th to the 31st, we got that information from Mr. Gilbert, as you're aware. Now, I just got out of the phone before I came here this evening from talking to Mr. Crosby's office in Ottawa, and there is still no confirmed date at this point in time. She assured me that Mr. Crosby is going to be trying to get into Burgeo before Christmas. Now, that's the closest she could go to at that time, and this was his scheduling secretary, and there's no confirmed date for Crosby to come to Burgeo. But on the other hand, I guess if we can get word, if we qualify for the moratorium on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, well then that would ease some of the pressure, because at least we'll know there's some security there for us once the USC runs out for the people of this community. But in terms of Mr. Crosby coming to Burgeo, I believe why is taking a while is because he's called for an investigation into sea freeze. And the last I heard, they called for a audit of all the fish that was caught and processed by sea freeze. And as far as I know, that investigation is still continuing. And I would assume that he's waiting for the results of that investigation before he comes in. I understand he's already met with sea freeze officials, and he's certainly not very pleased with what they've been doing up to date.
Okay, Mayor MacDonald, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Not in regards to the fishery, Dave. That's all I can say is the Action Committee has been working very hard, having regular meetings. They've met with both Mr. Simmons, MP, and Mr. Gilbert, MHA. They've written off a lot of letters, made a lot of phone calls, and certainly received a lot of correspondence. And I believe the committee is very active. And I think, you know, the end result is they will achieve something through all this hard work. And I'm pleased to see that the committee is certainly cooperating very well. There's another point I'd like to bring up is the Arena Committee. As I mentioned in the council report, as you're aware, we had a public meeting, I believe it was in April. We formed an Arena Committee at that time to do a study to look into the possibility of trying to set up some sort of arena for Burgeo. Now, this committee has been active as well. They've done a report. They presented it to council as it's a detailed report of their findings and recommendations to date. And they met with several people, including Ian Joyce, the assistant to the premier, Lauren Barber. And their recommendation was for council to set up a recreation commission, which we have done, and with a representative from council on it. Now, this commission has the authority, I guess, and the power to apply for funding for recreational purposes. And right now, the committee did manage to get an application in before the deadline of October 31st, so hopefully we will achieve funding for a feasibility study and get things moving on in regards to an arena or other recreational things around this community. And I'm pleased, and I want to thank the Arena Committee and the Commission for taking these duties on them voluntarily.
Okay, Mayor MacDonald, thanks for speaking with us.
You're welcome.
Now over to Reverend Childs with the Anglican Church Report.
Again. Good evening. I'm pleased to bring you this church report, especially since, for the most part, it is positive. First, I want to welcome, on your behalf, Reverend Hallison Cook to our town and our parish. I trust that her stay with us will be both pleasant for her and profitable to our parish. The last time I gave you a church report, I launched the sod and soil appeal. I told you then that I would show you the churchyard after the landscaping. That promise I'm not able to keep at this time. But if you haven't seen it, trust me to tell you that it is beautiful. To complete the project, we need the fence removed and the hedges sodded. This will cost very little, but it will put the finishing touches to a very worthwhile and successful job. Truly, it has both enhanced the beauty of the church and the town. Many people were involved in this project, and many thanks are due. The most I can say is a sincere thank you to everyone. I'm also delighted to tell you that our financial situation is very good. According to our treasurer, John Savory, last Sunday's envelope givings were up dramatically, and in fact was the most received for any Sunday since March. If this trend continued, for the remaining 2 months of this year. What looked to be a bleak financial picture at the end of the year could turn out to be a complete reversal. Regarding the assessments we have to pay to the Senate office in Corner Brook, we ranked number 6 among the 26 parishes which have paid assessments. In other words, 20 other parishes in our diocese hold Senate office more than we do. This week we paid 2 monthly payments in the amount of $2,640. We now have a balance of $4,020 to be paid by the end of the year. Without a doubt, this will change our status again and put us closer to being number 1. Being number 1 should be our chief aim this year. It depends on our concerted effort. Those of you who are in the habit of waiting until late in December to make payments to the church should consider making them a little earlier. The Advent folders are ready to be delivered. This year the folders are a little different. In other years the folders were designed to hold $10 worth of quarters. This year they are designed to hold $15 worth. However, the new folders begin on November the 15th, 2 weeks earlier. Regardless, though, how much the folders will hold, the real question is, how much can you, or are you willing to put into your folder? Regardless how much it can hold, all you are required to do is to put 1 quarter in at a time. If between now and Christmas you can put 1 quarter, 5 quarters, 10 quarters, $10, $15 in that folder, it will be gratefully acknowledged. Don't let the number of pockets in your folder dismay or upset you. Just commit yourself to giving what you can afford, and then return it to the church. If the vestry members haven't already picked up their folders for the zone captains, please do so as soon as possible. Vestry is again planning a Christmas fair to be held on December the 19th. This has become a tradition. Although some money will be raised, the emphasis is really on fun. The young people have really enjoyed this fair, but it is also fun for adults too. In order for this fair to be successful, the whole parish will be asked to cooperate. Details will be given later about this fair. In the meantime, you can prepare yourself to be asked to participate, and if you are craft-minded at all, you should put your skills to work now, because we will be having a craft table which will range from baking to woolwork to woodwork. During Advent, the mitten tree will again be put in our church. This mitten tree has become a tradition as well, and a very successful one. We anticipate that both the Christmas fair and the mitten tree will again be outstanding successes. I also want to tell you that we have at the parish office some books entitled Churches of Newfoundland and Labrador. I have a copy of that book here. Now, these books were sent to us to raise money for the Bible Society. There is an article in this book about our church, and it was written by Mr. Aubrey Matthews. It would be an interesting book to read and an excellent gift for a friend. It costs $12. If you want one of these books, drop in the parish office or phone 886-2591. There will be a Remembrance Day service in our church on November the 11th, beginning at 10 o'clock. If any organization hasn't contacted the parish office about reef laying, please do so at your earliest. For now, I bid you good night, and thank you.
Now over to Mayor MacDonald with the Town Council report.
Good evening. Burgeo Town Council report. As you are aware by now, work has started on the Senior Citizens Complex. Hopefully this project will be completed without any further delay. To date, the new contractors seem to be doing very well with the project. The Action Committee set up by Council has been meeting on a regular basis. The committee has prepared a brief to present to Mr. John Crosby when he visits Burgeo. Council still haven't heard anything from Canada Post regarding the installation of more mailboxes. At the last council meeting, members of the Arena Committee were present and presented council with a detailed report from findings to date and their recommendations to council. Council has set up a recreation commission in order to achieve funding for recreational purpose in the community. The commission must have a representative from the town council on it. Therefore, council agreed the mayor will sit on this commission. A letter was received from the Honourable John Crosby regarding the sea freeze operations in Burgeo. A letter was received from Premier Clyde Wells regarding the sea freeze operation in Burgeo. A letter was received from the Gulf News regarding the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the SS Caribou. A letter was received regarding the John Cabot 1997 500th anniversary. A letter was received from the Southwest Ski Club regarding a recreation commission in Burgeo. Official opening of the new fire hall is scheduled for the afternoon of November 28th. This will be followed by a dance later on in the evening. Water samples taken and tested by the Department of Health confirms the town water is fit for human consumption without being boiled. Therefore, the boil order that was in effect has now been cancelled. A letter was received from the Prime Minister of Canada, the Honourable Brian Mulroney, concerning the sea freeze operations in Burgeo. Midland Construction has been awarded a contract to install a water system in the Messrs. Ed area. Work is scheduled to start on this project by Wednesday, November 11th. The doctor that was coming to Burgeo has taken up medical practice in another community of Newfoundland. Reasons for this is believed to be that doctors in other parts of the province receive a higher rate of pay than doctors presently working under Western Memorial Hospital. However, council feel confident that there will be a doctor located for Burgeo in the very near future. The application was approved for a resident of Inspiration Road to construct a 12 by 16 shed. The application was also approved for a resident of Airsdale to construct a shed. The application was approved for a resident of Burgeo to set up a flower shop, subject to approval from the Fire Commissioner's office. And a letter was received from Fisheries regarding the Burgeo fish plant. Thank you very much for listening. Good night, and may God bless.
Community events. The Lioness TV Bingo held on Wednesday night was won by Miss Elda Kasser. There's no TV bingo scheduled for this Wednesday because this Wednesday is Remembrance Day. Groups and organizations wishing to book a TV bingo are reminded that the schedule for 1993 is now available for anyone who would like to book a bingo. The Burgeo Town Council is advising residents that effective Saturday, November 14th, 1992, the garbage dump will be open every Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. instead of Friday afternoon. These hours will be in effect until further notice. Signed, Doug Kendall, Town Manager. Notice to Fisheries salaried employees. You can pick up a copy of your group insurance proposals for January 1993 from Mr. Carl Barnes. A decision has to be made by November 20th, 92 if you wish to continue with Johnson's Insurance.
Well, that's it for tonight's program. Please stay tuned now for the first bandwagon for this season. We hope you enjoy it. On behalf of BBS and the BBS volunteers, I'm Dave Cooper. Have a great week. Good night.